Guppy always dreaded visiting Diagon Alley, but unfortunately she needed to pick up several herbology books from Flourish and Blots. Her leaping toadstools weren't doing very well, and she needed help. Walking through Diagon Alley in a summer dress, handmade by upcycling one of the dresses of her family's last mistress, Guppy felt the stare of everyone around her. The gawking of other magical creatures was what frustrated her the most. She knew that her family had the privilege of being employed by a good wand carrier in the past. Guppy knew that others were taught to think otherwise, but she wished they wouldn't judge her for being free. Guppy apparated back to lush green hills once she was done, hearing loud voices as she approached her cottage. Curious, she pressed her ear up against the door.
Can you believe it? Finally someone else is free from the wand carriers. I really don't understand why it took them so long to realize how poorly they treat elves.
Good for him, I suppose. I just hope that more of them realize. We need to work together, or else Dobby and any other free elf will just end up like us.
Guppy burst into the room.
What's wrong with ending up like us? And what's going on?
She asked. Her parents stared at her, wide-eyed, surprised that she had heard their conversation. Her mom sighed.
How much of that did you hear, honey? You were saying you were hoping more elves realize that someone else is finally free,
whom I'm assuming is Dobby, she replied.
Harry Potter freed your cousin a while ago, tricked Lucius Malfoy into giving him a sock. He's overjoyed to be free from that man.
How'd you know this?
That kind girl Luna stopped by earlier to buy some for Danny,
her dad said.
You're right though. There's nothing wrong with ending up like us. We're better off without the wand carriers. I just don't know if being away from our own community is what Dobby wants. It's not the easiest way to live.
Guppy nodded her head slowly. Navigating the wizarding world as free house elves was not easy. Wand carriers felt like they had ownership over us. Other house elves were taught to think that they had to act as servants to wand carriers, and other salient magical creatures looked down on house elves in general. Before she could think more about house elf politics, her dad said,
Luna gave us a letter from Dobby. The letter says that Winky, do you remember Winky? The elf working for Barty Crouch Sr.? He freed her and she's not taking care of herself, getting drunk on butterbeer. Because of this, a student at Hogwarts, a Hermione Granger, is organizing something called SPEW, the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, to try and change things. Apparently she's been hiding clothes around her common room to try and trick house elves into being set free. Now only Dobby has been going to clean it.
He chuckles.
You might want to look at this closer.
Grabbing the letter, Guppy headed into her room. A wand carrier trying to set house elves free? This is new. The more she read, the more hope she had. Excited, she grabbed a quill and paper and wrote the letter.
Dear Mrs. Granger, my name is Guppy, and I am a free house elf. My family and I have known a privilege that not many of my kind will ever know. My last mistress, Vonetta Balfour, came from a long line of wizards that believed in equality, not just amongst the wizards, but for all sentient beings and magical creatures. They gave all their house elves the same magical opportunities as their children. The house elves in their employment learned how to read, write, and speak English in various languages. The Balfours also gave us a day off weekly and 2 galleons each week. When Vonetta Balfour died, she bequeathed a small part of the Balfour country estate to us and a small portion of their fortune. My cousin Dobby has told me about your outrage about the position of house elves in the wizarding world. I was surprised when Dobby mentioned there was a wand carrier advocating for us. Many wand carriers who have grown up in the magical world do not see anything wrong with the structuring of society and the treatment of the house elves. It would be a pleasure to make your acquaintance, as it is very rare to meet a wand carrier that thinks house elves deserves to be treated better. I do not mean to be critical of you, Mrs., but why SPEW? There must have been a better acronym, or something a little more appealing. SPEW doesn't actually conjure a pleasant image when heard. Why not elf? The Elfish Liberation Front. Also, Dobby told me about him cleaning all of Gryffindor's tower by himself. I understand that you think you are acting in our best interest by leaving hats and clothes hidden under rubbish in the common room, but it is insulting to the elves you are trying to help, and quite frankly, detrimental. As a free elf bears a mark of shame, missus. To be freed from our master's employment means we aren't fit enough for our purpose in wizarding culture and elf society. You must understand that by tricking the elves into freedom, you do not do them a service, but a great dishonor. Don't get me wrong, missus. I appreciate your help and passion, but you're looking at the enslavement of house elves from the eyes of a wand carrier, a wizard, ma'am. Except for a few, we house elves have no identity, no culture, no purpose outside of that designated to us by wizards. Look no further than Winky, ashamed and depressed by her freedom. If anything is to be learnt from Dobby, Winky, and myself, is that the immediate freedom of the house elves will not erase the centuries of institutionalized inequality. No one will hire Winky because she is tarnished by her freedom, something she sadly also believes. No one will employ Dobby, that is, no one except Albus Dumbledore, because Dobby has ideas above his station and wants payment for his services. Even worse, my family and I, elves who have been treated as equals and free for generations, are constantly receiving disgusted stares and disparaging comments by wand carriers and animals alike, simply because we dare to be different, to be more than servants. There needs to be a dramatic shift in wizarding culture before any of the changes we would like to see happen. But for now, might I suggest a renaming of your elf initiative and a focus on the education of my fellow elves. Only through education will my fellow elves realize that this isn't our natural state or condition. We were free once and can be free again. Only through education will they realize we deserve better. Also, through your peers' recognition of their privilege, will your revolution begin. Sincerely, Guppy the house elf. Guppy strode to where their owl was and handed the letter off to it, and sent it on its way to Hogwarts. As she watched the owl soar into the blue sky, she smiled, thinking, "This is the beginning of change."